If you want to build a real fan base for your artist project, today I'm going to explain exactly how to do it with a key element that most artists completely miss. Because the truth is, if you're trying to grow your community as an artist, which has everything to do with gaining attention and being memorable, then understanding the game of exactly how to be memorable is key. Now, I've been blessed over the last 2 decades to work with some of the world's most well-known music artists and fashion brands, and through that time, I've been obsessed with one question. Why do certain brands stick with fans for life while others vanish from memory forever? And what I've found is that the answer actually lies in psychology and how the brain is wired and how we respond to emotion, story, sound, and identity. When you combine well-told stories with incredible music and you understand how memory really works, you don't just get streams, you build community, and that community can change your life. So in this video, I'm going to give you the full secret sauce, a simple, easy method for making sure that your artist brand will never be forgotten, and also how you can be the first thing a fan remembers when they go to put on music. Because being unforgettable has almost nothing to do with talent. It's not about your song, it's not about how good you are. It's about how the brain processes identity and logs memories. So by the end of this video, you'll have a checklist on how you can literally apply this today and start making your artist brand unforgettable. And wait till you hear how artists like Fredigan and Anima are actually hacking your brain without you even realizing it. We'll break that down in the second half, so let's get into it. Section 1, how memory works. So simply put, memory works in 3 stages. Stage 1, encoding. The brain notices something and converts it into a memory trace. Stage 2, storage. The memory gets stored in various regions of the brain, short-term versus long-term. And stage 3, retrieval. Later, a cue brings that memory back to consciousness. I won't go super in the weeds with the science, but basically, the prefrontal cortex helps with the attention and the meaning essential for the encoding process. It's either triggered or it's not. Every single day, all day, every day, while the brain's awake, it's constantly asking this question: does this matter to us or not? So then the hippocampus is your brain's memory assistant. It decides what gets filed in your memory after the encoding process. The hippocampus also decides where it gets filed and potentially if it goes in the trash. Think of your brain's memory as a giant warehouse, and the hippocampus is an assistant that arranges the files in that warehouse. Filing someone's name who you met once from a party you went to years ago is likely in the trash, and if it's not, it's way in the back of your warehouse. Other moments from your life, your first moment of real independence, or your first love, or if a close family member passed away, those files are right up front and they're filled with all kinds of specific details. And finally, there's the amygdala, which handles emotion. It tags certain memories as important if they were emotionally intense. If something was emotionally intense, it gets tagged and it gets filed closer in the warehouse. So to be easily remembered and filed up front, you need 3 things to happen. First, and most important, you need to get noticed and grab the attention of the prefrontal cortex. Second, you're going to want to be filed, which comes from the emotional relevance or the emotional intensity. And then third, you need to repeat this as each time you do, your file becomes bigger and is stored closer. Section 2, uniqueness, the von Restorff effect. So flat out, the brain remembers what breaks the normal patterns of the day. This is called the von Restorff effect. When something stands out from its surroundings, it's more likely to be remembered. It's genetic and it's biological. Our brains evolved to notice the tiger waiting for us in the grass. The one thing that was different. The reason we notice a break in pattern is it's tied to our survival as a species. Pattern breaks cause the brain to go into primal wiring. It's asking itself, is this safe? Does this help us meet any of our basic human needs? Or can we derive pleasure from this? So here's a couple visual examples of this in the music world. So when Billie Eilish first arrived on the scene, her dark gothic street style stood out in a world of bubblegum pop. Post Malone has his face tattoos, Anima has the large-scale futuristic visuals, Lady Gaga showing up in her meat dress, Marshmello literally becoming a cartoon character, and Steve Aoki throwing his cakes. These all may seem like gimmicks, but they're actually neurological hooks for the brain. And when you're in the beginning or the middle phase of your artist project, being better than someone isn't enough. You need to be different. The brain filters out average and it flags pattern breaks. This is why jumping on the bandwagon of something popular, copying another artist's sound or look, it's not a great way to get that initial attention. A good question to ask yourself might be, what are people expecting from the genre world that you're in? Now, how, while still being yourself, could you break that expectation and create a mental flag for the brain? And whatever you do here needs to be aligned to you and your taste as an artist, but you're asking the question, what's missing here? What's missing from this scene? And then having that meet the things that you love and your art. Section 3, repetition, spacing effect, and neural pathways. It's a fact that the brain forgets by default. To make something stick, you have to repeat it, but not all at once. This is how people learn any skill in life, from playing an instrument to learning a language: repetition and space. So this is considered the spacing effect. Repeated exposure over time helps information move from short-term memory into long-term storage. And how the actual neuroscience works behind it is every time you repeat something, neurons fire along a specific pathway. The more it happens, the more melanin wraps around the neural pathway, making it faster and more permanent. This is why advertising works. It's not brainwashing, it's neural reinforcement. So as an artist, this means repeating story through emotional messages, and that can be in interviews, shows, merch, even in your captions. You're repeating your visual language, you're repeating your sonic language or your sonic identity, and you're wrapping all of this in a consistent, cohesive package so the person in the audience that's experiencing it remembers you. And you'll define the cadence for this, but you'll want to continually be posting consistently across the different platforms that you're on. And this is important because social is the new television, and you exist in the different channels that this generation's audience is watching. So as an example, imagine if there was an ongoing show that you've been watching every day, and then that show goes off air for a certain amount of time. Because it's gone, it's no longer top of mind, and it's no longer the first choice to watch. And depending on how much it moved you emotionally and how your brain looked at the emotional intensity around it, that will define if you actually come back to the show once the show comes back on. Think about watching a show where they only drop one episode every few months. It'd be hard for that show to gain an audience, even if the show is incredible. And you've heard this a bunch, consistency is key, but it's not just a discipline thing, it's because neurologically, this is how you build with your audience. But standing out this way is just one step. Later, you'll see how combining this with emotional storytelling and multisensory experiences multiplies this effect. We'll go deeper into that in a later section. Section 4, how to build emotional intensity. The more emotion you have, the closer those files get put in the front. The amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear, joy, sadness, awe-inspiring things, it acts like a flashlight that shines on the different filing cabinets in the warehouse. When something is emotionally charged, the brain says, this is important, keep it close. And this is why we remember things like the song we heard right after a breakup, a lyric that we cried to, a big song from the first rave we went to, or the song that played in the car on the drive home from the hospital with our firstborn child. I can tell you what that song is for me right now. So it's music plus emotion equals chemical imprint. It's why music has the ability to move you emotionally quicker than any other art medium. It takes a movie director 2 hours sometimes to get you to cry, when if it's the right song, it can happen in 10 seconds. And this is why emotional authenticity matters. If you make people feel something, especially if you're vulnerable, you create emotional stickiness. A good example of this is Fred again. His entire brand is about realness, and he uses emotionally honest loops, real voice notes, real people, real moments in his music. Everything feels real. That's the brand, and that's why if you're a Fred fan, you remember him and you remember his music. So the big question is, now that you have an understanding of how memory actually works, how can you apply this to your artist project and your artist brand? So first, once you have your brand personality archetype and your brand plot, and if you don't know what those are yet, after this video, I'd suggest watching the Addicting Storytelling video and the Making Music Content Easy by Defining Your Story videos. Those will help you define these two things. But once you have a grip on those, you'll want to look for where emotional intensity would lie within your brand. For example, if you are a jester brand, The emotional intensity would be around getting people to laugh and smile at your comedy. The more they laugh, the more they remember you. Now, if your brand was more of a hero brand and it was more of a raw reality show about ascension and a rise to fame, then it'd be great to be vulnerable in the storytelling, and you wouldn't want to hide behind the packaging of the brand. So cry, laugh, rant, be angry. Let the audience see those moments and let them feel with you. They'll remember you so much easier if you connect in those emotional moments. So say your brand is a creator brand and it's all about the art you're making, then the art needs to be emotionally charging. Looking at something like Anima, the scale of what he's doing has never been seen before. It's awe-inspiring, even if you're just seeing it on social, and it's memorable. As an audience member, you've never seen anything like this, and you've never seen it done at this scale. So your brain is forced to remember it. So to recap, you're first going to want to define your brand personality archetype. You're going to want to define your brand plot. And once you do, you're going to want to find where the emotional intensity lives within your story. So then coming up, I'll show you how some artists lock in memory, not just through sound, but by syncing movement, visuals, and even group identity. This is where the real power kicks in. Section 5. New but familiar. The perfect balance. So here's the beautiful paradox that is the brain. The brain loves patterns, but it also rewards surprise. And in neuroscience, this is explained as predictive coding theory. Your brain constantly predicts what's coming next. If you meet those expectations, it feels good. If you break them slightly, it lights up. It's why the twist in the murder mystery evokes the emotion that it does. This combo of comfort plus the feeling of something new keeps people engaged and creates pattern-based memory. It's why rom-coms will keep getting made until the end of time. For fans of rom-coms, it will work over and over. The beats of the story are exactly the same every time. The main character meets someone, they fall in love, the main character loses that love, and then the main character gets them back. But the difference for this new rom-com on Netflix is that this one's set in space and it's in the future. Or this one that's on Lifetime is set in New York City in the fall. It's the same story, but different. So the takeaway here is you don't need to reinvent the wheel, just remix it. The brain will remember both the shape and the surprise. Section 6, storytelling, narrative memory and action. So in the filing system of our brains, facts and information fade, but stories stick. That's why if there's a story or metaphor tied to some sort of information, it's much easier to remember. Our brains evolved to remember stories. Stories were our survival tools. The brain lights up when we hear stories because with stories, we don't just process the words, we simulate them emotionally and visually in our minds. We imagine the story and the people in it, and often our brain interprets that story as something that's actually happening to us. That's why by even just imagining a traumatic event or imagining a happy event, you can change your brain and body chemistry. So if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I believe that modern brands are movies or ongoing shows that the audience is watching. So the better the storytelling and the narrative is, the more the audience will remember the story and the things associated with that story. So the story is the most powerful part of the artist's brand because it connects and bonds the fan's brain to that artist. Even if you've had a level of success and you've got the hits and the tour dates, but your story is lacking and it's not aligned to you, the brand, or the music, you're missing an ocean of people all around the world that could connect with it. And usually when someone's hired us with Cult, this is the first thing that we're looking at is we're looking at story, and is that story emotionally hitting the audience? We're looking at the brand story holistically and we're seeing if everything lines up, because it's not just about having a compelling story or cool visuals with your artist project. It's about being unforgettable. It's about being easily remembered, which exponentially impacts the growth of a fan base. Think of your favorite artists, you know their story, you know what they're about, and you can tell me a bunch of different moments from that artist and their career that you remember. And the reason you remember it is because there was something about them and that moment that was emotionally triggering for you. And this is why nailing your story as part of the brand build is key to setting yourself in the minds of your audience. Section 7, multisensory memory. So the more senses you involve, the more memory hooks you create for the person that's experiencing it. So this is called multimodal encoding. For example, if someone goes to your concert, they're physically there, they hear your music, they hear the sound of the crowd next to your music, they see your visuals, they wear your merch, which features graphics and typography. All of this is a much stronger memory trace than hearing your song in the background of a social media video, even if the song is amazing. So as human beings, we're mostly wired for learning in 3 different ways: sight, sound, and physicality. It's how some people say that they're better visual learners, or others say that they learn better by doing. Also, what's interesting here is that language and how someone speaks and the words that they use can cue you into what kind of learner they are. For example, if you're explaining or teaching something to them and they confirm that they understand it by saying, "I see," that could cue that they're a visual type person. Or if they said, "I hear you," that could cue that they're more of an auditory person and they learn best and understand the world through sound. Or finally, in the same scenario, if they said, "I feel that," feel is more physical and more touch-based, so they may be a more physical learning type person. So basically, if you're more of an auditory person, which most great music artists are, because we like doing the things we understand and we're good at, asking somebody who's more of an auditory person to craft something more visual is like asking somebody who's right-hand dominant to throw a ball at a target with their left hand. They can attempt it and they might get lucky, but it's going to be difficult. If you can get your brand hitting all the senses, the potential for memory logging goes up exponentially. Let's look at a couple of examples of where other artists have done this, and maybe those will inspire you to create things on your own and where you might go with your brand. First example is the band OK Go. In 2006, they did a music video for their song, Here It Goes Again, using treadmills and crazy choreography and matching that to the song. So by using all 3 modalities, visuals, sound, and physical movement, it etches itself in the visual memory through novelty, timing, and surprise. In 2010, they released a music video for This Too Shall Pass, where a giant Rube Goldberg machine synchronized with the music. The engineering plus precision gives the viewer visual pattern recognition that makes the song and video unforgettable. So this works because the brain encodes movement, symmetry, and newness originality into the brain's memory. The videos give visual anchors to the music, creating stronger recall through multisensory encoding, audio plus sight plus movement. These videos were super creative, they were notable and shareable, and have millions and millions of views. Both took a lot of effort, creativity, and choreography, but what's interesting is neither of them were super expensive. For the next example, let's look at the band Rammstein. Their live shows use their industrial sound with extreme heat from flames and pyro, intense lighting, and disturbing but unforgettable visuals. The performances engage all the senses and create emotionally intense, shocking excitement and arousal moments. These moments activate the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, which boosts the filing process with the hippocampus in the filing warehouse. And the German lyrics, taboo themes, and the consistent theatrical identity separate them from the other metal acts. Uniqueness alone improves the initial memory recall via the von Restorff effect, which was the effect where distinct items are remembered better. And all of this can feel just like a brand being creative and being different from the rest, but on a science and genetic level, they're actually hacking the brain's memory and they become unforgettable by the design of how they've set up the experience for the audience. So for another example, let's look at something more pop singer based for an artist like Sia. Sia would use her dancer Maddie Ziegler as an alter ego to emotionally convey through choreography what she was trying to do and say in the music. Her brand itself, with the couture style fashion and the hidden face, added to the uniqueness element of the brand. The themes of her songs were very emotional and vulnerable and bring the audience closer to her and her authenticity. The wigs, costumes, and choreographed dancers act as memory anchors for the brain, and repetitively showing up as this character reinforces the brand's identity. So by using movement, emotional intensity, unique visuals, and repetition, fans can't help but remember her. And lastly, let's use an example from the dance music space and look at what A-Lock did at Coachella in 2025. For his set in the Sahara tent, he brought out 50 real human figures, all dressed in the same outfit. They wore silver gloves and specific masks for the performance. Time-coded choreography made this a multi-sensory performance. The unique visual setup of having performers in front of a DJ, the audio and songs being synced with the visual, and the real human movement of the choreography triggers the brain for multisensory filing. This performance became shareable and went viral, and for many who may not have heard of Alok prior to this performance, if they were moved by what he did, they'd want to explore further and may be curious about what he might do next. So the moral of the story and the examples given here is don't just stop at the music and the audio side. Think about the other senses. Visuals, lighting, stage design, music videos, the look of the social posts, merge typography, textures, your performance movement, and audience participation. Simple science. The more of these things you can creatively stack, the more memorable you'll be. If your brand is clear and cohesive, it's unique, the tunes are good, and you make it a sensory playground, you've got a much better shot at being filed up front with your fans. Now, this may sound like a long list, but the real ones, they're here for it. That's why they got into it, was to play the game of creativity and self-expression at the highest level. Section 8, contextual triggers, memories in the real world. Ever hear a song from high school that immediately pulled you back to that moment? That's what they call context-dependent memory, when memory retrieval is easier if you're in the same environment or emotional state as when it was formed. So as an artist, if your sound or image appears in different life contexts, clubs, road trips, workouts, rainy nights, you're creating multiple memory access points for the fan. And this is why it can be a really powerful thing to sync your music in things like movie and TV shows, video games, social content, or mood-style playlists, i.e. late night drives. You want fans to hear your music and experience your brand in a variety of places, and not just to have more presence, but to actually hack the memory centers of the brain. Section 9, identity and belonging, tribal memory. So another angle of using memory that's massively underrated is group identity. Humans remember things better when they're part of a If your brand gives people a sense of identity, they'll anchor memories around it. It's back to the genetic wiring for survival and the basic human needs. So think about Taylor Swift and her Swifties, Lady Gaga's Little Monsters, or deadmau5 fans with the mouse ears. These are memory communities. Fans link their music artists to a feeling of social belonging, which is one of the brain's strongest emotional systems. So by executing on all the things we've discussed here today, you'll find people from all over the world who align with you, your work, and your art. As you release different pieces of content and your performances, you assign meaning through your art to what the tribe and community represents. You give your fans an identity to wear through the community that you formed. That identity becomes a neural badge for the brain, and they don't forget. Recap, putting it all together. All right, so you've made it this far and you're about to get the master blueprint. Let's put it all together so you can walk away with a strategy that makes you and your music unforgettable. Number 1, stand out, get noticed, break patterns to trigger attention. Number 2, repetition. Reinforce memory through consistent messaging and moments. Number 3, emotion. Make people feel in intensely emotional moments. Number 4, surprise within structure. Balance newness and familiarity. Number 5, tell your story and invite people into your brand's universe. Number 6, engage the senses. Use as many senses as you can when presenting your art. Number 7, create context. Show up in different emotional environments. And number 8, build a tribe. Make a memory community. I hope today's chat has you thinking about how to make your artist brand an unforgettable one. If you want to work together on a campaign or building out the creative for your music brand and make something unforgettable, you know where we are. All things The Cult Creatives, thecultcreatives.com. But good luck with what you're building. I hope whatever you create is unforgettable. Appreciate you hanging. And until next time, peace.